Hello and welcome to The Razor's Edge. This is Hutch, and in our latest interview about the impact of the coronavirus on the music scene, I'm speaking with Ian Shaw. Ian is a booking agent for TKO, one of the largest booking agents in the world, with a list of bands as long as your arm, including Armoured Saint, Anthrax, Gwar, Overkill, Prong and Queensryche, to name just a few. He's also director of Surprise You're Dead Promotions and one of the main contacts for alternative music in the Midlands and other parts of the UK. Right, so let's start with a little bit of background about yourself, because although you've been doing what you've been doing for quite a while, obviously your name may not be that well known to a lot of people, which is probably the way you want to keep it. So give me a little bit of background about yourself and the roles that you do, because you're an agent for TKO, you've set up Surprise You're Dead, and you're pretty much involved in the music scene in the Midlands and various other areas, aren't you?
Yeah, so basically I started in 2003 as a promoter in my hometown in Wrexham in North Wales, and then sort of, progressed from there. I ran my own club nights there. I then started working for a record label called Lockjaw Records, doing press and PR there. And then I quickly became a booking agent for the record label at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it came hand in hand. So I started my little toe in there. And then once I'd done, I think I was at Lockjaw for about 6 or 7 months, maybe a bit more. And then I joined a booking agency called Factory Music. And then Matt moved into me moving from Factory Music to TKO. And then I run a venue in Chester called the Live Rooms, which is the same team who owned the venue that I was putting shows on in Wrexham. And I moved to Birmingham 7 years ago, maybe 8. And then I helped launch a venue called the Ublek. And then I left there and started Surprise You're Dead. And that's kind of where we're at, I guess. In that meantime, I've helped launch the Vault in Rugby. I helped launch the station in Cannock, and there's a possibility that I'll be working with another venue in the Midlands, or in Coventry in particular, very soon. More on that. And I also will be programming Primordial Radio festival events as well.
Oh, brilliant. Great. The list of venues that's on the Surprise You're Dead website is interesting, because obviously they're nearly all Midlands based, but then for me, being a South Walian, you've got the Tramshed listed there as well. Yeah,
so I've got a good relationship with the people who run the Tramshed. Obviously, they're the same people who own the mill as well.
Yeah.
And then I did a show in a Plas in Cardiff.
Yeah.
Which was Alien Ant Farm. No, was it Hoobastank POD Alien Ant Farm with Dave Driscoll at whatever Orchard. I think it was before then. It might have been. No, I think it was Orchard. I did a show with him there, and that kind of was what launched the company.
Right.
Because I made quite a considerable amount of money off that because it sold out. Me and Dave walked away very, very happy. So I used that money to invest into Surprise You're Dead and basically launched it properly from then. And then I did Alien Ant Farm as a download warm-up show in the Globe in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And then, because I'm doing shows in the mill in Birmingham, they sort of had a chat with me and said, do you want to start using the Tramshed for a couple of shows? And then it just so happened that Napalm Death's agent got in touch and was just like, you always do Birmingham, but do you fancy doing any other shows? And I was just like, yeah, where can I go? Because obviously, each city kind of has a guy like me that does those sorts of shows. I was kind of like, do you not have anybody over in South Wales or Bristol, for example? And they were just like, no, not really. And I was all right, I'll give it a go. And then we did the Napalm Death show literally a year ago, or just over a year ago, in Cardiff.
Mm-hmm. Sure, brilliant. That's great. It's great to have you down here as well, because obviously the Tramshed's a cracking venue for...
I love it, yeah, it's a great venue. It's fantastic.
And the team there are really good. All the staff are first class. So the purpose of obviously having a chat with you is really we're doing this series around the impact of the pandemic on the music scene, and we've interviewed various people from club promoters to record label people. Obviously, so we'd like to talk to you a little bit about the impact it's had on you in your various hats on.
Yeah.
But if we go back to this time, or maybe a little bit before this time last year, so a year or so ago,
Yep.
Obviously, what was your order book looking like at that time before the pandemic
I'll
broke?
be honest with you, yeah, between obviously Chester and all the shows that I put on in Surprise You're Dead, I mean, it was looking pretty huge. It was going to be a very, very busy year. It was going to be a big year for us. We'd got some big shows that were going to happen in Institute Main Room that never got announced and subsequently have moved. But yeah, it was looking really, really good. And I guess I think my anniversary to when shit really hit the fan is coming up, and it was probably about a week today.
Yeah.
That's when it will start. I mean, obviously, yes, we were well aware of what was happening, and things had already started changing at that point. We've had shows cancelled. We'd had after the burial cancel the week after it all started, and then we started seeing other shows moving, and other tours that were happening at that point. And then, I think my last show was the 15th of March? It was my birthday weekend, so I'm just having a look because it was a shit birthday. I'm not going to lie. So it was the 13th of March and 13th or 14th because we had who did we have? Oh, what's his name? Sean James, fantastic guy. So we had him at Dead Wax on the Friday, and then we had one of the Metal to the Masses heats at the Asylum on the Saturday. So I went to both of those, and they were quite weird in the sense that the Sean James one was a sold-out show, but you could clearly tell that a lot of people were sort of staying away because it wasn't as rammed as it should have been, and there was definitely a bit of space in there. So you could see that, it has certainly changed at that point. And then the Saturday at the Metal to the Masses was like a more sombre affair in the sense that everyone had come out, and it was kind of like, we feel like this is going to be the last hurrah before we can I can see a gig again. So everyone was kind of like, this is it. Have a few drinks and watch some, wicked local bands. And it was just chaos. Those 2 weeks leading into sort of the 14th and 15th was just absolute batshit crazy. And, shows were dropping left, right and centre. Tours were moving. And as a booking agent as well, I had Wolfjaw on tour with Jared James Nichols in Europe, and that was literally halting. I had other artists, were all, confirming supposed to be playing Slam Dunk Festival and Download Festival. And, we'd already heard at that point, Slam Dunk wasn't happening. And, I don't know whether it had been announced at that point. So, everything just started tumbling around and all the dominoes started falling. And, it was just a really crazy, unsurreal time, really. It really was.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you realised relatively quickly that it was kind of falling like a house of cards. But did you get any advice from any of the authorities, or was it purely responding?
Absolutely not a sniff. I mean, we knew it was happening. But I don't think any of us really sort of grasped it was happening, if you know what I mean. It was just like, we were hearing about it on the news. We were, we're hearing all this, that, and the other, and then obviously announced that there was a case in the UK. But then when you look back now, I don't know whether the government was hiding it or whatever, but there was cases in 2019, November, December. And, one of the first cases in the UK was in North Wales, and that's come to light since. And it was just kind of like, there was no sort of like any direction from local authority at the time or even the venues. No one really knew how to deal with it and, what needed to be done. And obviously at that point, everyone was, the government were telling us, we'll be back to normal in 12 weeks, 3 months, it'll be normal. So obviously we started moving shows to like 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line. And then we've been chasing our tails ever since, in the hope. And then, some tours have disappeared and cancelled, and some tours have, moved to this year or next year just to try and, stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it was a crazy time because I was in Liverpool the weekend of your birthday, and on the Friday night, me and my wife were watching Jack D in one of the theatres with 1,500 people, and then a week later we couldn't move. So yeah, absolutely crazy. What about your setup? Have you got staff working for you? So I've got a designer guy called Stephen. I've got a colleague called Ryan, who we both work in the Midlands in our office. And then as far as like Chester goes, there's Kerry, there's Alid, there's Matt, and a whole bunch of bar staff as well. So my company, we've got there's two of us that work with me, and then over in Chester there's like a team of like 5 or 6. And what was the impact on them? Because obviously I'm assuming that, tell me about. Do you obviously all work from home? Do you or?
We do, yeah. I mean, most, technically speaking, no one actually works for my company apart from myself. They're all self-employed.
Yeah.
I submit invoices, but yeah, and obviously in Chester it's a bit different. That most of those are on the payroll except me. I'm self-employed for them. But yeah, it all just sort of went a bit mental, and looking back at it now, it was just carnage to realise, I think, I was sitting down with my parents and my missus's parents on the 14th, and honestly, no one could, we're all sitting around a big table trying to have a meal in Shrewsbury, and I just couldn't get my head around it. I was just like, what the fuck's going to happen? I mean, I've got bills to pay. As far as I was concerned at that moment in time, I was like, I earn all my income from booking shows and promoting gigs, and at that point, I was just like, that was the end of the road for me. I was just like, what on earth am I supposed to do to keep a roof over my head?
Yeah.
The bills. I went into a very, very dark place very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And what about? So you talk about that, and obviously, it started off with the 12-week assurance, and then very quickly, I think people realised that, hang on a minute, this is not going to be a 12-week thing. This is going to go on and on. Obviously, the big festivals started falling, like Download, and then Bloodstock went, and all the rest of it. Did you get any? Can I ask a personal question? Did you manage to access any financial support?
Eventually, yes, but obviously for the first, I don't think I actually got any support until the Arts Council England Fund, when that kicked in. Was it July that came in? I think it was July. I mean, at that moment, we didn't really know anything. I can't remember what time the furlough scheme kicked in, but then obviously I furloughed myself, which was it was a big bonus as far as I was concerned. But I think it was a good 3 or 4 weeks before that was really announced of how they were actually going to support us.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until July when the funding came through. So I said to Stephen and I said to Ryan that I can continue paying them up until the end of May. Because both of them were in the same position as me, and I had enough finances in the business to be able to pay them up until May. And then obviously May hit, and then I couldn't pay them anymore. Yeah. And obviously the Arts Council England funding came in. I think it was July or August. I can't remember the exact date of it. And then that has kept us afloat up until now. Yeah. That's starting to dry up now. But hopefully, obviously, we see June come around and there aren't any major red flags, and we can all move forward. And things can start up again. But yeah, we got access to some funding to sort of keep us all going. Good. Just about.
Good. And the rest of the team, obviously the guys in Chester, I know they're self-employed, but obviously you've kept in touch with them, and you kind of
everything that's a separate setup. Obviously it's a business registered in Wales, and they got the grant as the venue for the first part, where I can't remember exactly what grant it was. I don't deal with the finances in Chester, I just booked the shows, but they got one of the grants which was linked to the business rates. And then I think they got like 25 grand to start with, and obviously they've accessed the furlough scheme, so the staff could be furloughed and kept on, and they're still on furlough. I think we're on 50% furlough, so they're working half, and then the rest of it's on furlough. And then as a venue, they were also able to access some funding from the Arts Council England, which again, a venue is a very, very costly thing to run and keep going, rent, etc. So that money's drying up. And hopefully, the problem we're facing right now is we're still waiting to both hear from Arts Council England, because I'm not eligible for the next round of funding, and the venue haven't put an application in for the next round of funding because we believe we have enough to keep us going. But it all rests on whether the Arts Council England will allow us, because it's only supposed to keep us going till the end of March, and then that's it. But because we haven't spent all of it, and there is still a little bit there, is whether we can roll that over so that we can use it in April, May, and June for the next funding. And we're just sitting around waiting for a decision from the Arts Council England whether we've got to give the money back or whether we can hold on to it for another 3 months and use that money to keep us going until we restart, I guess.
Sure. So obviously booking agent, promoter isn't the thing, the glamorous in the public eye that people think of when they think of music. They think of venues, they think of bands, they think of fans. What kind of link? You've got huge numbers of links. Have you managed to keep the network alive during it? Are you talking to people all the time?
No, totally. I was, as a company, the booking agency that I work with is based in the US. So again, Andrew and Mike, who are the directors of the company, they obviously, whatever happened in the US was completely different to me.
Yeah.
I'm the only person that's based in the UK. But, we were having weekly, Zoom chats, which has been nice. I guess the only thing about this pandemic is more video calling rather than actual telephone call, and actually seeing the people that you meet face to face, even if it's just, through a screen. I'd rather that than pick up a phone all the time.
Yeah.
We're having regular catch-ups, just seeing how we're all getting on, making sure everyone's okay. If anyone's in trouble, just, speak to people and all that sort of stuff. So that was good. But it's and then obviously during this time, it's been obviously it's had parts where it's been absolutely crazy, and then it's had parts where there's not been a lot on.
Yeah.
So it's about keeping my mind busy and doing bits and pieces, and then looking at my roster as an agent and looking at what I can do to change a few things around it, take on a few more bands, take on a few more British bands, because I realised that a lot of my roster was all US based or European based, and besides the fact of a handful of UK artists, there wasn't much there. So I needed to sort of bring in a few more UK artists in there, so that it was easy to get them back out and working quickly.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Waiting for the US to come back over, because it's not going to. I don't see many US artists, if any, coming over until next year.
Yeah. So do you? I mean, with your kind of view on that, in terms of if June the 21st is the kind of green light to start doing something, and we're looking at obviously late summer potentially for some of the festivals and some of the concerts to go ahead and whatever. Do you think it will be predominantly UK bands that will be?
I think it will be. Yeah? I mean, there's going to be, because I guess the problem certainly with festivals is they're all dominoes in a chain.
Yeah.
So if the likes of Hellfest is cancelled and Grasspop's cancelled and Download's cancelled, and I'm not, Vakken hasn't cancelled yet, but it might, and Summer Breeze hasn't cancelled. If enough of those pull the plug, then an American artist can't just come over and play Bloodstock, for example, or 2000 Trees or Art Tangent, because it fits into a schedule of many other shows. Yeah. And if you're losing $5,000 from this show and $6,000 from that show, they're big holes in the budget. So financially it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think there's going to be a few bands that will play the major festivals that are getting good enough money that they're able to fly in for the one-off show and then go straight back again. But I think, a good 80-90% of it will be UK-based artists. And then I think when it comes to the end of the year, most of the touring that will appear in the venues will all be domestic.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk a little bit about the positive side of things in terms of you having to, I was going to say positive, but obviously it's with so many tours that were rolled over. Is one of your biggest challenges trying to get them all re-slotted in? Is it like doing a jigsaw puzzle? Yeah,
it's been harsh. I mean, it's been harsh on all fronts. When I'm rescheduling shows in Birmingham and trying to find the avails and trying to keep it in the same venue that it was in, and obviously, the agent that I've booked the tour off is trying to route it across UK and Europe, sometimes depending on when that tour is situated. And it's a hard task for them. And obviously, I'm trying to find the venues. When it comes to rescheduling tour that I'm booking and trying to get the avails across the UK, it's incredibly difficult, mostly because you've got a scenario where there are a shitload of tours already confirmed. Some of them are announced, some of them aren't announced. Some of those shows are 99.99% not going to happen, but no one's pulled the plug on them yet.
Yeah.
So, these shows and tours are taking up dates in venues, even though they're not happening. And that yours is most likely going to happen, but you can't do anything about it because no one's going to challenge or chase that date or change it and see if it's happening or not. So we're trying to, move around. And it's a definite problem from speaking to a bunch of venue operators that I know, not necessarily promoters, but venue operators, is they have a really, really full diary, but they're really concerned that, 60-70% of their shows are going to disappear this year. And it can put a lot, the pressure will be back on them to make ends meet because there's not enough shows in their venue to keep things going. So there's obviously, all venue operators and programmers are, scrambling now, contacting agents, trying to, fill their diary with as much content as possible so that they can stay afloat. Because obviously, once we hit the 21st of June and we're reopening, that's when all the help and support that venues have been getting, whether it's through grants and furloughs, is all going to stop.
Yeah.
So, everyone's starting to think about how they're going to get out of this.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And there's been a kind of train of thought within certainly the metal community, and I'm sure in other music communities, that when live music comes back, everyone's going to flood back to these shows that used to have two men and a dog at them. And I've got a slight reservation that if we weren't doing that before, there's no guarantee that all of a sudden we're all going to go and embrace more live music than we were before. But I mean, some of us will, because some of us are. This is what we've missed for the last year. What's your view on that, Ian?
I mean, there's two different types of people. There's people that go to gigs regularly, and there's people that just go to the gig as and when, But the bottom line is people's finances have been hit hard, dramatically hard in the last 12 months, and it'll be 18 months before we really start kicking into gigs again. Yeah. And the money only goes so far. So I envisage that the first 3 to 4 weeks will be chaos. The first week, if we open up on the 21st of June, I know that pretty much every club night across Birmingham has already sold out that weekend. Mm-hmm. A lot of the gigs that are happening that week have already started selling really, really well. You look at the Leeds and Reading has already sold out. Bloodstock is on the verge of selling out. Damnation Festival.
Yeah, I saw that today. It's
got like 199 tickets left, and it's going to be sold out in March for the first time in its history.
Yeah.
And obviously, no one at this point knows how they're able to operate. Mm-hmm. Everyone's buying tickets and rushing out as if everything's going to be normal. It's not going to be normal. There's going to be a lot of changes that happen on the 25th of June, and whether you're sitting on one side of the vaccine or the other vaccine, on the other side of it, 9 times out of 10 you're going to either need the vaccine to get into these places, or you're going to need a negative test. However, whether it's a day before or 2 days before, whatever. And the government aren't going to tell us that's what we've got to do. Mm-hmm. They're going to say that you need to put, you need to risk assess the show, and you need to put things in place yourself. Yeah. So whether that makes the promoter look bad, the band look bad, or the venue look bad. I mean, we've already seen Ian Brown pull out the festival because he's never going to play for a festival that, forces people to have a vaccine or whatever. And, there are going to be artists that do think like that, and customers that think like that as well. So it's going to be a very, very different field out there for shows, for certain. But I think it'll be chaos to begin with. And then it'll start tailing down. And then I genuinely think that, you might see a drop off of about 15 to 20% than what you would normally get. I mean, you're always going to have the shows that sell out. Yeah. They're a hot ticket show, and, they've just got a number one album or whatever. Fontaine's DC, those tickets flew out. While She Sleeps have gone, down a level to, just to do a sort of more grassroots venue tour. They sold out in minutes. Sleep Token, when we put their social distance shows on, it sold out in minutes. There's always going to be a demand for gig tickets. It just depends on how big a venue bands are going to go back into. Yeah. So it might look like things are okay, but you might see, I don't know, Neck Deep. Neck Deep's a weird example because they've just announced their rescheduled tour. But what you might find is they can normally sell 5,000 tickets, but they're going to go into a 3,000 cap room. Yeah, because they're just trying to offset that little difference of people not coming out, and then all of a sudden the shows are selling out because they're playing rooms that are smaller than they normally would. Yeah, and it'll make people think that everything's normal out there, but I think bands might drop down a level. Who knows? We'll see.
Interesting stuff. So, just to wrap up, during the year that you've had, is there anything that you've had to do that you didn't do before that you would now do as part of your new process? Obviously, you've talked about the Zoom calls, which is obviously one thing that we're all doing.
There's nothing that I have to do. Yeah. I mean, there's things that I have taught myself in the last year, and you'll see from my setup here, I've got a radio setup essentially. I've got a Rodecaster Pro, and I got that with the funding to allow me to do little radio shows or little, we were doing Facebook Lives at the time, so we were going to continue doing that. And we haven't as yet, but, I've done like 5 episodes, and moving forward, I will incorporate that into promoting gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll do a weekly roundup of the shows that we've got coming up. There'll be interviews with bands that are playing. There'll be interviews with bands that have played, on the day of the show. And, we're going to create new content that helps us to keep the Surprise You're Dead brand growing and, make it more of a lifestyle rather than just a promotions company, and bringing those aspects into it. And then I think I did invest some of the money that we got from the funding in buying some live streaming equipment. So I've got, 5 4K cameras. I've got a studio desk. I've got all the, the lenses, the cables, the screens and all that lot to do that. So, moving forward, we haven't had a chance yet because I'm still waiting for a few more things to come in.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start incorporating the live streaming aspect into our show. So nothing that we, I've had to do in the last 12 months, but things that I've wanted to do, and to sort of just broaden my horizons as a promoter and as a company, I guess, just so we can evolve with this. I think live streaming will be around for quite some time.
Yeah, I think so. And is there anything in terms of live streaming that you've seen that you think that's how to do it, and you've seen other stuff and you've gone, that's not how to do it?
Yeah, there's, I've seen lots of venues that obviously have been doing the Music Venues Trust campaign to try and obviously get donations from people. And, hats off to them. They've been doing Facebook live streams from their venue where it's some guy with a mobile phone just filming, a band on stage. That's great for raising money and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't give you good quality content.
Yeah.
When you look at bands like Behemoth and Trivium and Tesseract, and even Architects or Frank Carter, if you're going to do it properly, you have to make a spectacle out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a once in an opportunity type of event where you've got the opportunity to do something completely different, whether it's to play a venue that you'd never played before, or, you're doing like Royal Albert Hall or Behemoth doing underneath a church. Tesseract going full out on the technical side of things. And then Frank Carter having the audience around him on various screens at Brixton Academy. It's coming up with those ideas and making it a spectacle rather than just, 3 or 4 cameras pointing at a stage while the band plays. Because, it's great and everything to still see bands play. But I think moving forward, if it's going to stick around properly, it needs to be done as a spectacle or as an add-on. So we'll probably in the first I think we've got our first sort of dummy at the end of this month, and then maybe April through to the 21st of June we might do a couple of live streaming shows just to raise a bit of funds. But then once we're back normal and the gigs are happening, the live streaming element will be an add-on to the show. So if for example we've got Napalm Death doing a hometown show at the Institute, we might bring some of those cameras in and do a live stream show where people around the world can watch Napalm Death play their hometown show, for an extra £5 or something, and it all goes into the pots to, help the band and us, get a bit more income.
Brilliant. I mean, I think that's one of the things that will come out of this, as you've said, is that people are looking at innovative ways of expanding the options for people to watch live music, because the demand will be there.
Generally the industry was getting a bit stale anyway. I think, to some degree, the whole industry's rested on its laurels for quite some time. The formulas have stayed the same. Nothing's really changed. And, just the way the industry's operated has been the same. Slight changes since I'd started doing it in 2003. There hasn't been much difference between it, really. And obviously this, last 12 plus months has just given us that time to, step back, pause, and just reassess. Because, I mean, from a family point of view, I mean, I was non-stop for years, didn't really have much time to stop and just chill out and spending as much time as I could with my kids. But like this last year, they've been there all the time. So it's kind of like, when we go back to it, I don't want to go straight back to the way things were. I want to, slow it down. And I think that's, speaking to a whole load of people who work in this industry with me, is they've all felt the same, that it's given them that time to sort of reevaluate what's important. And, obviously mental health is a very, very big problem in our industry. Because obviously I'm a professional gambler, essentially, in the sense that I book tours and, I promote shows. We never know how they're going to go. I don't get paid until those shows happen and we make money from it, or, I'll book a tour and the tour happens. So, mental health point of view, it's been shit over the last 12 months, without a doubt. But I think, obviously, when we go back to normal I don't want to go back to the way things were. I think that's the same for a lot of people.
And I think that can only be a positive, can't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
for sure. 100%.
Absolutely. Great. Ian, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Just give me a quick plug for the Surprise You're Dead. Where can people find it? Where's all the details?
Yeah, I mean, we've run all the social media stuff, so we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I mean, I guess the most active part for us is our Facebook. If you head over there, that's where you'll find all the radio shows we're doing, all the show announcements and everything else, and obviously our website, which is surpriseyourdeadmusic.co.uk, and all the events are up there.
Magic. I wish you all the best. I know it's been a busy time. Take care, and I'll see you at a show soon.
Bye, bud.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.